Hey, Pat and Doug here with another episode of the Wealthy Gym Owners, and today we want to talk about pricing. We've got a few different things to unpack here. So, Doug, let's start off with talking about one of the more common topics with pricing as of late, kind of the decision to be weekly pricing, monthly pricing, how that works.
Yeah, so I'll start with not stating the obvious, which is we certainly want to make sure that our memberships and pricing are billed automatically. So at minimum monthly, billed monthly automatically. But then there's been this shift that I watched for a while and then adopted in our gyms, which is billing every 4 weeks. And as a business owner, there's an upside to that, of course, that you're getting a 13th bill cycle. Um, I'm very sensitive with it to also make sure it's not feeling like you're trying to nickel and dime people. But I do think if you're currently billing monthly, switching to billing every 4 weeks is a different angle to a price increase. If you're maybe afraid to do a price increase, billing every 4 weeks. Um, it is just another way to think about collecting more revenue in the year, generating more income without maybe sacrificing or being afraid to do a price increase. But with that being said, even on 4 week pricing, we have seen a benefit, and the benefit is honestly probably just more with confidence of the person selling it. I think if you had somebody that was super confident, so let's use a price of $99 a week, right? That's $396 every 4 weeks. If I look at my traditional trainer that is, 25 years old and is trying to sell somebody 396, that feels like a lot to them, right? And it is like it's a premium service. And so I think at the end of the day, positioning something as $99 a week, yes, it feels a little bit easier to say. It's maybe an easier pill to swallow. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to whoever's presenting that is just a little bit more confident that this is the best option for that client, that this is, what they recommend, and they can sell with a little bit more confidence. Thus, close rate goes up and you get more signups from it. We, have many people that have switched from monthly billing to every 4 weeks, and then on your price sheet saying, $99 a week instead of saying $396 every 4 weeks. And we haven't seen any drops in close rates. So if anything, it's been an increase. So that tells me that there's really only upside with very little downside.
Yeah, I think that the first part you touched on too was something that a lot of people don't give much thought to. They get so caught up in, well, I just raised rates, or I'm afraid to raise rates because people, are gonna balk. I mean, adding this other payment is what, about an 8% lift annually, and that's a pretty big jump, right? So, I think that it's a pretty low friction way to get that done. So, all right, so kind of on the heels of that, because obviously we're adjusting pricing to be more profitable. Um, how do you formulate profitable pricing? Like, how do you arrive at pricing? Because to be honest, most people in our industry arrive at pricing by looking around the market and saying, well, this is what everybody else does, or this is what everybody else does. So I need to come in a little bit below that. Um, how do you arrive at pricing?
So the short answer is I want to generate somewhere between $200 and $300 per training hour, right? And some of you might hear that in the one-on-one world and be like, well, there's no way I'm charging $200 for a personal training session. And, I would say that's probably in most markets true. And that's one of the downsides of private training is you're going to have a lower ceiling. The other option, of course, would be to have two private training sessions running during the same hour, and they're each generating $100. But I think when we first get into this business, we look at it and we say, okay, yeah, we're gonna, as you said, we're gonna look at our competitors and things like that. But We also don't realize, I know I didn't, like when I first got into it, I'm like, okay, I got my rent, I got my utilities, and maybe a software or two. And then all of a sudden fast forward a couple of years and your expenses have doubled and you're not pricing yourself for any profit. So when I say $200 to $300 per training hour, I use that because we have to factor in all the expenses that go into a brick and mortar training gym. We have, ideally people that are delivering these sessions for us so that we're not tied to it if we don't want to be. We have all the softwares, the coaching, all of that stuff that goes behind it. So I think the 200 to 300. So for simple math, if you take, six clients in a session, $50 a session per client, there's your $300, right? So I would probably start my small group personal training on the high end at 50. And then, if you're like 100% away from that, maybe you incrementally give yourself some confidence jumps to get there. But that's where I would start. So then, again, if you're using, let's say, okay, 50 sounds way too high for you, because I do understand you want to be confident in the prices that you're using. So let's say that you settle on $40 per session because you got 6 people in a session, you're doing small group personal training. So that's 240. I think that's pretty healthy. And frankly, that's where we sit in the marketplace, is about $40 a session. And then from there, you would just build out your memberships. So 40 times, let's say you're doing a twice a week membership. That's 8 sessions every 4 weeks. So 40 times 8 is 320. And so that's how you kind of reverse engineer the pricing. And the last thing I would say on determining your pricing is I always want no's. I always want a few no's. If you're closing 100%, then your pricing's too low. I want, 2, 3, 4 no's for every 10 people. That tells me that my pricing, I want, a third of the people to say this is too expensive. That's a good sign that we're probably accurately priced.
Yeah, that's great. I think that you touched on that, and there are always uh, outliers here and there. I mean, yeah, if you're a one-on-one trainer that's subleasing and have no overhead, you may be able to get away with less than that. But frankly, this is wealthy gym owner. It's not wealthy one-on-one in-home trainer. Um, so so I think that's the starting point. Um, I think there are a number of ways that we can kind of deviate from there, and I could turn into a really, really long episode. But I did want to add um, one other piece of this, whether it's like a founder's rate or a front end offer. How do you factor those kind of on ramps into the core pricing you're talking about here? How do you?
So, so when we think of like trial-based pricing or front-end offer-based pricing, I'm basically totally cool not making money in the first month, right? Is the general way I think about it. Um, because, one of the biggest advantages we have in this business is recurring revenue. And most of us, if our product is good, clients are staying, year and a half, 2 years on average. And so since we have that to our advantage, since we can, I'm not going to say guarantee, but we have, history tells us that we're going to collect 15 more payments. We can probably, to some degree, I'm not going to say eat it, but to some degree collect less in the first payment. So where I would be cautious of is for something that's free, making it longer than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? If you're going to be free or like what I would consider to be low price, which for most training gyms would be any offers under like say $99. Those are very like they're good and I'm not afraid to use them, right? But it's very much a trial that is based upon I just want to see if it's a fit. And people are going to know if it's a fit within a week or two. Like they don't need a whole month. versus let's say that you're selling, like we're about to test in October here, we're about to test a 90-day program. We haven't done a long-term program in a long time, so I want to test it. And that's part of selfishly what I like right now at this stage of life is like just trying stuff to see if it works. But I want to try like a higher priced 90-day program. And obviously the goal is to flip them into long-term membership. But that is an example of like you are signing up for a result. I'm promising a result, a transformation, a tangible things in 90 days. And so that's the same exact price. That 90-day program is the same exact price, maybe even higher than our regular membership, right? So those things, if you're promising, let's say, 4, 6, 8 weeks long, like we do a summer membership would be another example, right? Summer membership does great. It's for people that just want to train during the summer. Obviously, again, the goal is to keep them long term, but it gets them in the door. But there's no discount to it, right? That's a full price. We just take whatever it would normally cost to be 8 weeks, and so that's the way I think about it. Is if they're like wanting a result, if it's a short term membership, regular price as your core offers. If it's a hey, I just want to test it, I just want to get in here for a week or two, then I'm not too concerned with the price on that. I just want to get them in the door and then flip them for membership.
Very cool. Well, I think that pricing probably doesn't get enough attention in our industry. Everybody gets really caught up in leads. Everybody, gets caught up in, high ticket this or whatever else but I mean, really just, do we have a core program that is profitably priced and can we consistently get people into it? It's probably the most sustainable or durable way to operate. And with a recurring revenue model, I mean, we're pretty fortunate with the opportunity to do that. So, I mean, again, we could go down the rabbit hole a lot of different ways, but that's a pretty good foundation if you've been unsure about um, how to optimize your pricing, how to make sure you're profitable, and just maybe a good time to audit and see where you can tighten things up. So that's Pat and Doug with another episode of the Wealthy Gym Owners signing off.